Hey there, Mr. Terry here, high school history teacher. Thanks for joining me today. You've probably heard recently that President Biden has pardoned his son, Hunter Biden, and I thought I'd give you a short, brief history about the pardoning power in the United States. Before we do that, I thought I would read President Biden's letter that he has sent in regards to the pardoning of his son. This was submitted on December 1st, 2024, and this statement is directly from President Biden himself. He said, "Today I signed a pardon for my son, Hunter. From the day that I took office, I said I would not interfere with the Justice Department's decision-making, and I kept my word even as I have watched my son being selectively and unfairly prosecuted. Without aggravating factors like use in a crime, multiple purchases, or buying a weapon as a straw purchaser, people are almost never brought to trial on felony charges solely for how they filled out a gun form. Those who were late paying their taxes because of serious addictions but paid them back subsequently with interest and penalties are typically given non-criminal resolutions. It is clear that Hunter was treated differently. The charges in this case came about only after several of my political opponents in Congress instigated them to attack me and oppose my election. Then, a carefully negotiated plea deal agreed to by the Department of Justice unraveled in the courtroom, with a number of my political opponents at Congress taking credit for bringing political pressure on the process. Had the plea deal held, it would have been a fair, reasonable solution of Hunter's cases. No reasonable person who looks at the facts of Hunter's cases can reach any other conclusion that Hunter was signaled out only because he is my son, and that is wrong. There's been an effort to break Hunter, who has been 5.5 years sober, even in the face of unrelenting attacks and selective prosecution. In trying to break Hunter, they've tried to break me, and there's no reason to believe it will stop here. Enough is enough. For my entire career, I have followed a simple principle. Just tell the American people the truth. They'll be fair-minded. Here's the truth. I believe in the justice system, but as I have wrestled with this, I also believe raw politics has infected this process, and it led to a miscarriage of justice. And once I made this decision this weekend, there was no sense in delaying it further. I hope Americans will understand why a father and a president would come to this decision." With that being said, what is the history of the presidential pardon? First off, Article 2, Section 2 of the U.S. Constitution is what gives presidents the power to pardon. And the origins actually go back to England, as it was called the prerogative of mercy. And it was actually Alexander Hamilton that brought the idea of the pardon to the Constitutional Convention. Now, there was a lot of debate in the convention about it. One of them, if treason should be considered a pardonable offense. They reasoned that pardoning subordinates for treason could leave the president vulnerable to impeachment and removal from office. The first president of the United States, George Washington, used the pardon to pardon those involved in the Whiskey Rebellion. Now, there are 3 limitations to the pardoning power. First, a crime must be committed. Second, the pardoning power only applies to federal crimes. And third, the president cannot pardon in cases of impeachment. Other than these 3, there are no limitations to the president's pardoning power. Thomas Jefferson granted amnesty to anybody convicted under the infamous Alien and Sedition Acts. Abraham Lincoln used it to encourage desertions of the Confederate Army in the Civil War. And in one of the most controversial pardons, President Andrew Johnson pardoned Jefferson Davis, the former president of the Confederacy. Another famous pardon came from Warren G. Harding, where he pardoned infamous socialist Eugene Debs. And of course, no pardon might be more famous than Gerald Ford's pardoning of former President Richard Nixon. The public did not look kindly on that, as his approval percentage went down 20% in the upcoming days. And a lot of people think that that ruined his chances of being elected in 1976. President Ford said he pardoned Nixon to help restore peace in the country after the Watergate scandal. According to the Department of Justice, between 1900 and 2017, 22,485 pardons have been issued. From Ronald Reagan's presidency in 1981 to Barack Obama's presidency in 2017, there have been 3,069 pardons. President George W. Bush issued the fewest numbers of clemency at 200 for a 2-term president. Another famous instance of pardons was Jimmy Carter, who pardoned draft dodgers of the Vietnam War. President George H.W. Bush pardoned Secretary of Defense Caspar Weinberger and others involved in the Iran-Contra affairs, feeling they were innocent of any wrongdoing. Now back to President Biden. His son Hunter is his 26th pardon of his term so far, and it is fairly common for more pardons to be given out in the final weeks of a president's presidency. Barack Obama issued 1,927. Donald Trump issued 237 pardons by the end of his first term. Now here's a question. Have presidents pardoned family members? Yes. President Bill Clinton pardoned his half-brother, Roger Clinton, and Abraham Lincoln pardoned his sister-in-law, who was the widow of a Confederate general. President Trump pardoned his father-in-law, Charles Kushner, who was convicted of preparing false tax returns, retaliating against a cooperating witness, and making false statements to the 2005 Federal Election Commission. I encourage you to check out more about the history of pardons in this country, because there's a lot of interesting stuff that I didn't cover here today. So then, what do you think about the presidential pardon power? Do you think it's a good thing? What type of restrictions, if any, do you think there should be? Let me know down below. All right, we'll see you next time.